Everyone knows 1857 as the moment India rose against the British Empire. But what if I told you that in one forgotten corner of Orissa, a rebellion had already been burning for decades before 1857 even began? And when 1857 failed, this rebellion still refused to die. This is not a story about a single battle or a dramatic uprising. This is the story of a war that lasted 37 years. One man against an empire, in a resistance history almost deliberately forgotten. His name was Veer Surendra Sai, and the British feared him so deeply that they imprisoned him for more than 50 years of his life. Not because of what he was doing, but because of what his name alone could still do. The year is 1827, in Sambalpur, Orissa. A teenage boy stands silently as British officers walk into his family palace. His father, the rightful ruler, is forced aside without a fight. A puppet king is installed in front of the court. The message is humiliating and clear. Power now belongs to those who obey, not those who deserve it. As the palace empties, Surendra's father turns to him. His voice is low, urgent, almost afraid. He tells his son that a throne can be taken, but justice cannot. He asks him a question that changes everything. Will you accept this quietly? Or will you remember that what is stolen can also be reclaimed? Surendra Sai nods, not fully understanding the weight of that moment. He has no idea that this promise will cost him his youth, his freedom, and most of his life. Most rebellions explode and disappear. They burn bright, then burn out. But this one does something different. Instead of ending, it slows down. It spreads quietly, and it begins to stretch across years, then decades. While the British consolidate control, Surendra Sai disappears into the forests of Kudopali. Dense, wild, and unforgiving terrain becomes his greatest ally. The British see the forest as hostile land. Surendra Sai sees it as strategy, shelter, and survival. He does not fight battles he cannot win. He strikes when the British are weak and vanishes when they are strong. Villages whisper his name. Messengers move through paths soldiers cannot follow. The forest begins to fight alongside him. British reports from the early years sound almost dismissive. They call him a nuisance, an irritation, a local troublemaker. A few years later, the tone changes. He is now dangerous, unpredictable, impossible to pin down. By the late 1830s, British commanders admit something uncomfortable. They cannot catch him. Every time troops are deployed, Surendra Sai is already gone. One officer writes bitterly that the jungle swallows their men whole. Another admits that Surendra's followers move at night as easily as the British walk roads by day. But Surendra Sai is not just hiding. He is organizing. He builds supply routes, intelligence networks, and communication systems that function without him being present. His rebellion does not depend on his physical leadership. That decision changes everything. In 1840, the British finally capture him. They celebrate, convinced the rebellion will collapse without its leader. Instead, the opposite happens. From prison, information still reaches him. His messages arrive hidden in food, clothing, and silence. Guards later admit he often knew British plans before officers executed them. Then comes 1857. Across India, soldiers revolt and cities erupt. News reaches Sambalpur, and the region explodes into open rebellion. British installations are attacked, prisoners are freed, weapons are seized. Chaos spreads faster than expected. Surendra Sai is still imprisoned, yet his name becomes the rallying cry. Men charge shouting his name not because he is present, but because he has become something more than a man. He has become proof that resistance is possible. The British response is brutal. Villages suspected of support are burned. Captured rebels are executed without trial. Terror becomes official policy. Yet something unexpected happens. The rebellion does not break. A captured fighter moments before execution laughs when offered mercy for information. He says they can kill bodies but not belief. By 1862, Surendra Sai is captured again. This time, the British are careful. They move him far away to Hazaribagh jail. No public trials, no speeches, just silence. They make a quiet decision. He will never be released. They do not execute him, fearing martyrdom. They do not exile him, fearing return. They simply lock him away and wait for time to finish the job. Surendra Sai enters prison in his early 50s. He will die there at 93. More than half a century of his life passes behind bars. Even then, the British remain uneasy. Decades later, unrest continues in Sambalpur. Tribal groups still invoke his name. Folk songs still tell his story. A British scholar writes with disbelief that locals speak of Surendra Sai as if he were still leading them. In prison, an aging Surendra Sai is once asked a simple question. Does he regret it all? Decades of war, decades of captivity, replies calmly. That regret has no place in a fight for what is right. Victory and defeat, he says, are for history to judge. He dies in 1884, long before India gains independence. By every conventional measure, he failed. And yet, when India becomes free in 1947, his story refuses to stay buried. Recently, a major book released in 13 languages has called the Kudopali Rebellion the longest armed resistance against British rule. 37 continuous years. So why didn't we know this before? Why does everyone remember 1857, but almost no one remembers a rebellion that lasted for decades? The answer is uncomfortable. History is written by those who survive in power. A short, crushed uprising is easier to document than a resistance that never truly ended. British records quietly minimized Surendra Sai after his final capture. His name faded from reports, but not from memory. In villages, the story lived on, through songs, through elders, through forests that remembered footsteps. The British could imprison a man. They could not imprison memory. So here's the question I leave you with. If one man, without resources, without recognition, could challenge an empire for 37 years, what does that say about power? And how many more stories like this are still waiting to be remembered? If you've liked our video, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.